Welcome to the Sunday mornings at the Marxist Library. A reminder before we start, we are recording our presentations and the discussions that follow and post these for our wider audience. The videos will be available both at our YouTube channel, ICSS Marxist, and our website, icssmarx.org, in the next couple of days. As the ICSS group, which stands for the Institute for the Critical Study of Society, we are a group of volunteers who organize the meetings and a larger group of participants who meet every Sunday to discuss world matters. My name is Mehmet Bayram, and I will be hosting this session on Sunday, June 2nd, 2024. I'm a member of the program committee that organizes the Sunday mornings at the Marxist Library, and I'd like to start off by reminding everybody that we always welcome your input, feedback, and suggestions for topics and speakers. You can contact us through our website at icssmarx.org. This meeting is a comradely forum for political discourse and debate. The opinions expressed here are those of the participants, and they do not necessarily represent those of ICSS or the Marxist Library. However, we are united in our respect for the work of Karl Marx, and we believe that his work remains relevant today. Our motto is taken from Karl Marx's 11th thesis on Feuerbach, quote, "The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it." The title of today's session is Artificial Intelligence, Cure or Curse. It will be on the class structure of AI and the reasons that a productive force appears as a destructive force of capitalism. The presenter, Özgür Narin, has maintained that it is not the AI per se that is the problem, but rather it is capitalism that uses AI as a tool of exploitation that poses the danger. He has written, "When we consider the machine learning algorithms using large data sets gathered through all cycles of capitalist social reproduction, it would be better to consider the alienation of total social labor and this new level of manipulation." We will be talking about this on how Marxists do or should approach AI. He will discuss this problem and the parameterization of society vis-a-vis Datafication of society, considering the distinction between the social form of data collection, that is capitalist data extractivism, and the objective content of data gathering, which is in fact a possibility to organize the social production in a different classless society. Our speaker today, Özgür Narin, is currently a union member and assistant professor of economics at Ordu University, that is a town in the north part, Black Sea of Turkey. He graduated from the Electrical and Electronics Engineering Department of Middle East Technical University, my alma mater as well. He studied the capitalist production of science and technology, particularly innovation and the changing scientific labor process. His current research is on artificial intelligence, general intellect, and the alternative reorganization of social production and society. His writings appeared on Monthly Review and Science and Society magazines. Well, welcome, Özgür. I'm going to leave the podium to you, and we will have the discussion after you end your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I got flu. If any problem with my voice, please warn me immediately. It's nice to be here. Nice to be here to meet with you and to discuss these topics, especially AI. So let me share my presentation if I can.
Yeah, go ahead. You should be able to.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Tamam, okay. No. My topic is about the class structure of AI, actually, and and the reasons why such a productive force, actually, the productive force of labor, maybe intellectual labor, but actually the collective labor, how it manifests itself, or how it's transformed to a destructive force within capitalism, and the capitalist use of this AI. So first, I would have to give my outline. I will talk about the historical development of machinery from machines to actually machine learning, how the machine learns, quote unquote, actually, how it gets or gains intelligence, so-called intelligence, and the key historical moments in that process, in evolution of machinery. I think it's 3 or 2 historical moments that I could point out. Actually, I can point out, and then the development and the arms race. Actually, sometimes they call the arms race between the capitalist world and Soviet Union. The historical process always, not always, but recently, for decades, this historical process just told in the perspective of Western science and Western developments. But in reality, there's the other side, the Soviet side, and the race between them, which is actually a class struggle, both in Soviet Union and also the interclass struggle between Soviets and US, US and maybe capitalist world. So the subsection will be about this arms race while telling the historical development of it. The second will be the complementary part, because all this can be seen as something technical process, technical development, or more technical literature, something like. But actually, the technical literature is intertwined with social analysis, and this social analysis is my social analysis, of course, Marxist analysis of machine and machinery, because uh, at the eve of the Industrial Revolution, Marx was the one, actually, the first one, maybe, not Adam Smith, not Ricardo. They were mentioning about the machine and machinery, but Marx first developed some points about, systematical points about the machinery, analyzed and examined the machinery in very in-depth. It was an in-depth analysis, especially 1861 and 63 manuscripts before publishing the first volume of Capital. That there was a tremendous work on machinery and technology. So this social analysis is very important for me, because it sets the limits of machinery and actually the AI, how how the capitalist system uses AI, how the capitalism appropriates, actually, the knowledge, the scientific process of AI development and AI methods, and etc. So this will give us the class structure of AI. That's my third point. And then I will try to emphasize some points about AI development as an arena of class struggle. So let me begin by the first key moment, actually, the first turning point, maybe. You all know or familiar about that. In 1814s and 1830s in London, 3 Londoners were coincidentally there. 2 of them was Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace. They were actually responsible for a great innovation or discovery about the first computers, maybe about some computation machines that can compute some problems, models, and actually that can compute recursively, that may end up with some like computer or first computers. So they were the computer pioneers. Ada Lovelace was Charles Babbage was important, but also Ada Lovelace was very important. because she was the first programmer, so-called programmer. She did the first program in a marginal node to man Ambra. That's an engineer trying to do some computation with Charles Babbage's first machine, analytical machine, and it allowed us while translating his paper, added some notes which are actually the first program. That is, and it allowed us was very like a fortune teller, not a fortune teller, but she uh, told about the importance of this discovery, this machine, Charles Babbage's analytical machine, because he says, like we view the fabric, view the textiles and etc., view patterns to the textiles or the fabric. We can view uh, patterns or computations like modeling some kind of abstract thoughts. This computation is not just simply calculation. We can compute some functions which actually that may be models of some abstract thoughts or abstract algorithms maybe. So it allows us, and beyond that, she even told that she even wrote something like the limits of AI. So she said this is just a computation, just a pattern making. So this is not an artificial intelligence, or this is not a human thinking yet. So it was very early, but they were very creative in that sense. So in that sense, actually. And Karl Marx was there eight, after 1848 and etc. He was there. And he was the first actually one, not the first one, maybe the early one that examined the machinery, the machine system, both technically and socially. The social analysis of machinery was very important for Marx because all surplus value, capital accumulation, and limits of capital accumulation, rate of profits to fall, and etc. All the critical concepts of his system. In all his system, the machinery, the technology was very important, and he was more positive for technology, but he he constantly stressed or pointed out the limits to the technology because profit seeking and the rising organic composition, that is rising technical composition of capital, that is the machinery and automation, uh, or enlargement of the automation means decrease of the surplus value. So it's a limit to the capital and capitalism. That social analysis was very important for me, and I will try to uh, see all the development in this perspective actually. What Charles Babbage did as actually was very important because he made the computation system. He used Newton's, I think, Newton's divided difference method. That divided difference method is somewhat technical, but I can maybe explain in basic terms. It is if you have a function, a mathematical function, that function can actually represent a machine or a machine doing something, abstract thing, or but doing some tasks. This can be a mathematical function, and if this function can be computed somehow, can be calculated somehow by some methods, very simple methods, then you can actually calculate and compute an algorithm, and you can actually uh, somehow represent a task in a mathematical way, in a computational way. So the analytical machine and analytical engine actually, the first, it's the primitive model was a difference engine, and then Charles Babbage tried to build a new one called analytical machine. This analytical machine, analytical engine, is actually try to compute some functions, and if this function can be simplified into small into little into a series of sum, for example, series of sums and etc. If you can sum A plus B plus C, and you can you can transform the function into A, B, C, and the sum of it, sigma of it, they so-called. You can have this function and computation. This they use the divided differences, that divided differences method of Newton. That's technical, but I will just emphasize that one. By this, you can not just imitate, for example, divisions, exponentials, and etc., but also some polynomial functions, some curves, and etc. Those are, you can simplify simplify asymptotic functions and etc. in a series of sum. So this sum can be divided into small parts, and these parts can be computed in cogs and wheels and the analog machine of Charles Babbage. That was a very not the first one. Leibniz did it, Pascal did it, such machines, but this computation machine was recursive. It can take its outputs and as inputs again, and do the summation in a recursive way, in a continuous way, maybe. So this was very important for actually this was a passage from analogical logic, or not analogical, but analogical modeling, to the digital modeling, to digital in the sense that you can use numbers and later maybe the binary codes and etc. So this was a very interesting transition from analog to digital. And Charles Babbage's discovery, Charles Babbage's machine was very important for that, and Ada Lovelace's, of course, contribution was very important. And that was actually the epoch of analysis. Marx in Grundrisse especially, and then in some parts of Capital, try to imply that not the age of analysis, something like that. This is it's a dual fact actually. On the one side, this is the analysis of natural sciences, that is like the analysis of chemistry, like the mathematical analysis, etc. And at the same time, the analysis of the labor process, actually the division of labor and division of the labor process into small parts, small and recursive parts, simple parts actually, so that machinery, a mechanism can replace that simple task. So it comes with the two dual phase actually. On the one side, the scientific analysis of the production, industry, and everything actually. The mathematical analysis was one of them. And on the other side, the analysis of production, the division of labor. This was a times when, for example, Charles Babbage and John Herschel, his friend, again a scientist, established the analytical society, the analytical philosophy, not just the analytical philosophy, but mathematical analysis and etc. were very important for that age. I'm emphasizing that point because this age of analysis is actually nowadays age of data analytics, a big data analysis. At that epoch, at the turn of the 19th century and then 20th century, actually, the data, the information, not the analog one, but the digital information of the production, and then the social reproduction with as time passes began to be extracted from the production and reproduction process, and that was the first. That was the beginning of all of these actually. So division of labor is important because Charles Babbage, when in the early 19th century, he wrote a book about the production and the division of labor actually in the production, and that book was what Marx read carefully twice, one from French, one from the English one. The French one read in Brussels, not in London. The English, the original one in London, British Museum. That book was about division of labor in production, in manufacture actually. Why? Because Charles Babbage try to get the division of labor in production, because that was an analogy, not just an analogy actually, not just a metaphor for Charles Babbage, for division of mental labor. Actually, one chapter of his book was titled "Division of Mental Labor," and in the introduction, Charles Babbage explicitly wrote that this book is not just about division of labor in production, because I am trying to I'm trying to create a division of labor, division of mental. I'm trying to understand the division of mental labor and trying to create a division of mental labor in computation of logarithms and functions, some functions which are very important for tax calculations, navigation calculations, and etc., which are accurate calculations for very important for accurate calculations. So Charles Babbage explicitly declared that this book is about actually the mental division of labor and trying to learn all of these, examine all of these, all the division of labor, because I'm trying to simplify the labor production process. And this simplification is actually not just for the replacement of machines, because a mechanism can do the same routine thing, and this will decrease the cost of production, and increase the profits, of course, and etc. But also, this will be very important in a computation of some functions with machines, computational calculation machines. And his machine, analytical machine, was just that. Marx analyzed the machine and machinery just in that epoch, but actually, and interestingly, ironically maybe, didn't point out or didn't, I can't say realize, but didn't give the real importance, didn't get the significance of the introduction and the chapter about division of mental labor. It was very new. It was very a new process to formulate maybe, but there was more important things, of course, like surplus value, capital accumulation, understanding the machinery and production and profit seeking, etc. They were more important, but this was an interesting point that Marx did not realize, maybe you can say. So the division of labor is very important for artificial intelligence or for machines or machine learning, because for building machine, you have to have the division of labor be mature there, because you have to, there must be a division of labor. The division makes the tasks simple and recursive, that can be repeated so that a mechanism can replace it. So this division of labor is actually the labor of actually machine and later the machine learning. The labor in the sense that the machinery and artificial intelligence actually emerged out of the labor's division and the absorption of labor skills, actually, the workers' skills. So the workers' virtuosity and skill, when codified, when simplified, when can be transformed into routine and recursive acts and tasks, they can be mechanized. And this is actually the absorption of skills and the absorption of productive skills to the machine, the virtuosity to the machine. So actually AI is a result of collective workers, all of the workers, mental, intellectual laborers, and the manual laborers, totally all of them's virtuosity, the absorption of we can call it real abstraction. Mathieu Pasquinelli rightly calls that, and this also is written not or implied in Marx, the real abstraction of the labor process, and this real abstraction is absorbed into machine and machinery. So this is age of reason and age of analysis, actually, and William Ashford's interesting and important paper clearly points out that talks about the analyticals. They are Herschel's, Babbitt's, and some of the scientists then studying then. The analyticals took it a step further and saw the mind as a machine whose operations are described by analysis. So we can see this in Marx also. That's a long one. So they actually look at the British industry, the manufacturing chains, and try to model this division of labor for intellectual labor, not just effective disciplining of the process of intellectual labor, actually economical use and effective disciplining, but also creating a machine that can get the virtuosity of the worker, not just a manual worker, actually. Later, it will be intellectual labor's virtuosity will be absorbed to the machine and machinery. That will be the machine learning or a more quote unquote intelligent machines, actually. So before big data and data analytics, there was such an age of analysis, actually. And it was the analysis application of mechanical and chemical laws. That's what Marx said in Grundrisse. First, the analysis and application of mechanical and chemical laws arising directly out of science, which enables the machine to perform the same labor as that previously performed by the worker. That's critical. And he actually just use the same words, the analyze in German, stress that this road to the machinery is actually rather dissection, that is division of labor, actually, through the division of labor, which gradually transform the workers' operations into more and more mechanical ones, so that at certain point a mechanism can step into their places. So this is clear for Marx in that machine and machinery analysis, very innovative machinery analysis, actually. So he stressed always to do, like, it's a dialectical method, actually, the dual phase of it. The first, the analysis in the science, and the change in the production of science, actually, the capitalist labor process, maybe we can say. The first, the analysis of science, all science, natural sciences, chemicals, and mechanisms, and etc., trying to absorb the knowledge, to codify it and use it as a machinery or for profit seeking. And the other side is the dissection in the division of labor. So this is very important, and this is this actually can be seen on the other side, where division of labor, in the division of labor, what the capitalists did or what the scientists working for capitalists did is actually economizing or optimizing the labor process and decreasing the cost so that raising the profits. So that's a capitalist production, and capitalism fund all these for just to get labor control and more profit. This is the the one side. So this is actually the class struggle side, not only on the macro side or the overall side, but also in the workplace. That's class struggle side, and technology is shaped actually in a constant struggle with not just the capitalist, but capitalism in general, because there's a resistance in the workplace and in the workers if they are unionized. So this ends up with some machines, and sometimes not the machines, but the workers' unions and workers' collectives gaining power or empowered collectives. So this is I've stressed for the machine and class struggle, the one that Richard Roberts did. Maybe I can get to the important quote from the Capital. I'm not gonna read all the ones, but maybe you know. In Marx talks about quoting actually Andrew Yu, quotes about uh, the resistance to machinery, not the resistance to machinery, but quotes about the unionization of the workers in Manchester, the mule spinners actually. They are unionized. They demand and get they demanded and got high wages because of unions. Not high wages, but their deserved wages actually. And this is a cost to the capitalists, and the capitalists united to replace them with the machines. So they went to the Manchester capitalists. They went to they went to engineer actually at that time Richard Roberts. That's not an engineer, but a mechanic worker, maybe we can say, a skilled worker, or even an inventor, the Mr. Roberts to make them a machine. That will be the self-acting mule. Actually, it will be a very important step for automation and automated behaviors and etc. And Mr. Roberts did invented that uh, machine that's called the Iron Man. The Iron Man replaced mans and workers, and uh, by that way they can bust the unionization, and they can stop the unionization, and they say that that's the quote of the Andrew Yu. We can quote it. This invention confirms the great doctrine already propounded that when capital and its science in our service, the refractory hand of labor will always be taught docility. So we can see the machine and machine production, capitalist machine production, is strongly connected with the class struggle in workplace, and not just an external class struggle, actually internal class struggle that forms and shapes the design of the machine actually. This is important for Charles Babbitt's machine also, analytical machine and the other stuff. And it will be important for the later developments in machinery and machinery to machine learning and etc. So this Charles Babbage was actually a son of a shoemaker. He was from a working class family, and he even survived in Peterloo massacre. That's a workers' meeting, and attacked by the government, British government, in 1819. But then he went to be a mechanic. He was talented about the mechanics because all the workers, not all the workers, but some workers strongly related to machines that they operate, can solve the problems there, and this gave them a talent or a skill that they can recreate it or they can re-innovate it. So Richard Roberts actually go to a mechanics master, that's mostly, and learn the profession, learn the skills of machinery building, and this was that Mr. Roberts that made the self-acting move. That was very important for labor, so-called uh, labor-saving machines. That was actually a capitalist process, capitalist class struggle process for that can give us the example of how machines actually decide or change in the process of capitalist production. So, and then the second turn, the second key moment is actually post-World War II one. That's the cybernetic turn. That's I will explain this evolution in two sides, as I said, the both sides through the both sides of this development. In the west side, the Norbert Wiener was very important. He just talked about, he just coined the term cybernetics. And this cybernetics was actually the automated control of machines, the servo mechanisms that can automatically or maybe autonomously work and adapt themselves according to the information or according to the sensory informations they got from their sensors and etc. So Norbert Wiener, as you all know, did all these in World War II. He was very talented and important at predictive mechanisms that can target the fuses, the rockets, or target the planes, to shoot the planes. In order to shoot the moving plane, that's plane in movement, you have to predict where it will go, and you have to get the sensor information of the wind, the velocity of wind, and etc. So you have to have some kind of prediction, that's statistical prediction actually, and you have to get these informations, process, compute them, and then have an output that is how you will target the missile to the planes, rockets, or to the planes. So this is a actually cybernetic process. You just update, or you just correct your target according to the feedbacks that you get from the sensory information. The feedback is very important because in all my historical evolution of machinery explanation, the feedback will be the one that that the property that machine can learn. The machines can correct themselves with the feedbacks that from the output medium they get from the output medium, the external medium. When they get the feedback, they will correct their outputs, and they will have some automatic behaviors. They will gain actually automatic behaviors. So machine learning is strongly connected with these all feedbacks mechanisms. I will explain feedback mechanism in a while Marx in Marx analysis actually, and then at the same time, Claude Shannon in post-war U.S. Claude Shannon was discovered not discovered maybe that point out that systematically the theory of information. Theory of information is important for us because, as you can guess, all the data we are choked actually is actually once upon a time that they were information. So how you get the information from nature and external sphere, and how you process this information is very important for cybernetic or automatic machines that can get the information and compute, and then try to behave so-called intelligently. But those were not all actually. The other side, the so-called the other side, actually the Soviet side. In the Soviet side, Kolmogorov was very important. Norbert Wiener actually referred to him many times in his book and tried to see him in Soviet Union when he went there. So Kolmogorov is very important for statistical developments and for Kolmogorov's Markov chains and etc. Those are all statistical and predictive analysis was very important for control theory actually. Shestakov was important for Claude Shannon actually because Shestakov was the not correspondent but corresponding person in not corresponding that will be wrong. What Claude Shannon was for US, Shestakov was for USSR because Shestakov actually discovered the electrical gates, logical gates, first in the Soviet Union in 1934 or 32 while in the university. And this was a very important, the electric logic gates was very important for computers and computation, the control theory. So it was actually the first Shestakov and later in 1940s, Claude Shannon built the theory of information very systematically and etc. The Kitov and Glushkov is important for cybernetics, for networked computers. They actually wished to control the overall production of Soviet Union by computers, networked computers, and that was a very huge project actually, but didn't happen because of bureaucracy and class struggle in USSR. So this was an important turn in machines to machine learning or machines gaining intelligence actually. The first one is a Norbert Wiener. I can just refer to some of the key papers, maybe key findings or key innovations in them. That's the two of them is at the same time, 1943. One of them is the first one is about the feedback models for understanding living organisms. That's important because all the machinery building and mechanism building scientists began to look at the organism and try to imitate the organism by the feedbacks of the organism and try to imitate it with the machines. They will later imitate the minds, actually, neurons and etc. And the second paper is McCulloch and Pitt's paper. That's very important for imitating the nervous activity, the neurons as logical calculus of ideas. So if you can model the neurons, the behaviors of neurons, like multiprocessing nodes, and then you can get the logical calculus, or you can get the logical calculus of it. You can imitate it into an electrical circuit. So this is very important for computation, actually. Very important step for trying to imitate the mind, actually. So this was the first step of actually what will appear as neural networks, artificial neural networks, neurons and perceptrons maybe after that. So this was a very important cybernetic age. And this was not, and after that, Macy conferences was very important. It was very interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and many different branches of scientists participated in these conferences. Mathematicians, engineers, neurophysiologists, psychiatrists, life scientists, member of life sciences, psychology and social sciences. The important names are as Wiener, von Neumann, Bigelow, Shannon, Margaret Mead as a sociologist, important ones, Gregory Bateson, Rose Ashby, physiologist, but neurophysiologist, McCulloch, and etc. So, but it was not, it was not. There was also it, it was there was also class struggle in that. The class struggle was not out of this processes actually. It is in and intimately connected, and not intimately but internally connected, and it was a very important process for that. For example, Norbert Wiener, while convening these conferences, at the end of the conferences or at the end of the process, he rejected actually the enlistment of science in the Cold War. So he rejected some military projects and the older military projects, and he refused, clearly refused to write an open letter, a scientist rebels and say that I will use my talents for people, for workers actually, and what workers is, I can say show this. Yeah, this is a letter to Union of Automobile Workers leader, to Walter Reuter, by Norbert Wiener. He was just in the after the post after World War II. He wrote to union leader that I'm a professor at MIT, and I'm building a automation machine, and this automation will be very important for industry, and it will cost a lot for workers. Problem of automatic machinery, he says, and these consequences seem to me so great that I made repeated attempts to get in touch with the labor union movement and trying to acquaint them with what may be expected of automatic machinery in the near future. He tries to warn them, and as far as we know, there was no positive or no answer actually from Walter Reuther to Norbert Wiener. He was actually labor sympathy. He has a labor sympathy, and he says, "I do not wish to contribute in any way to selling labor down the river. So let us do something together." So there was always the class struggle existing there, and this was the Spermatic age actually. I'm trying to emphasize the class struggle because while all this machinery, the absorption of labor skill, division of labor and labor skill, absorption of labor skill to machinery uh, is the one side of it. By this way, the machine gains some automation, autonomy, and etc. But on the other side, the workers' skills did it, so the labor actually get it. And at the same time, who uh, who can codify this knowledge, who can model, who can scientifically produce or scientifically get the innovations for doing that is they were the science workers actually. They were actually the part of collective workers, science workers. So the science class struggle was there actually, not in an external way, not just in a sympathy or sympathetical way, but also in day-to-day struggles and etc. And after Spermatic age, we can talk about again Viktor Shestakov, the logic gates with electrical circuits, the USSR side of it, and after that, actually, in 1956, the Dartmouth Conference, that's the all history uh, all official history of artificial intelligence nowadays began from the Dartmouth conference. Sometimes they mention about cybernetics and etc., but it's an old, actually, this is a very class-based classification because they try to distinguish themselves from Norbert Wiener and Norbert Wiener's colleagues and etc., because Norbert Wiener is kind of more pro labor and etc. And the persons there, unfortunately, they are all men. the men there actually first convened the Dartmouth conference and called it AI. In some of their letters and some of their memoirs and etc., they sometimes call that in order to get a fund, we have to use a we have to use a important and fundraising word. So we used artificial intelligence so that we can have fun and convene the conference. But in some of the memoirs, in some of the history, historical scientists, biographies, and etc., we can see the clear attempt to distinguish themselves from cybernetics and all these things and try to begin to the history in a clear page, actually, the clear page of capitalism, maybe. And those are the persons, actually, John McCarthy, Marvin Minsky, Claude Shannon, that Herbert Simon built the myths and actually the discovered the more some importance, not least important, some important discoveries for artificial intelligence, especially neural networks and the other stuff. So this actually marked the beginning of official artificial history, artificial intelligence, the beginning of history, official history actually of artificial intelligence. So during that process in Soviet Union, there was mainly, not mainly, but actually I can say some of them, I can point out some of them. There was one discussion about AI situational management. They say they want workers management and the management of the production with computers and information systems. So it will be a situational management system. So they were discussing that. And on the other side, they were discussing about criticizing the American mechanistic and reductionist approach to human intelligence, because American mechanistic approach trying to imitate the mind, actually the brain, imitate the brain. As we will see, Soviet approach was more social, was more akin to social relation, was more closely related, trying to connect to the social relation and minds, actually. Social relation in the sense, we will see that in the sense that not just brain builds or the mind does not emerge in a single brain. Actually, the mind is a social process, is the result of social interaction. So we have to have this social interaction side in the artificial intelligence. So actually, before then they can see the social interaction side, which will be actually for our decade, the deep learning with the deep learning and with the information gathering and etc., trying to build the minds or trying to build imitating the mind with the social interactions, with gathering all social interactions, actually imitating social interactions or getting the patterns of huge data, getting the patterns in huge data of social interactions. So this pattern is a model for reasoning in a sense. So, so in Soviets, this approach was very early in 1950s and 1960s. They began to have this social approach. So they don't want to be reductionist as Americans, mechanistic, and they don't embrace the cybernetic mind-machine analogy, that mind or brain is a machine. We can do it, we can copy the brain, and we can have the mind, we can produce so-called mind, actually. So the other side of it was critique of choice of freedom as definition of freedom. That was interesting, and that is actually it seems not so related to artificial intelligence, but it is, because in America and, for example, Joseph Weizenbaum and the other some of the more computer scientists, important computer scientists, somehow declare that the machine, you cannot create easily artificial intelligence, because you have to, the machine cannot choose. The machine can decide from the options, but the machine cannot choose, cannot judge, cannot, we can discuss in the Q&A, we cannot judge. So it's like something the machine must perform the tasks that human gave them. And those tasks are actually strongly related to the human measure, human values, and etc. So human must be there. So you cannot create an autonomous artificial intelligence, said Joseph Weizenbaum. And this was actually about the choice of freedom, and thinking that um, the mind's decisions are related to choice, and choice of freedom is very important. But Soviet critique of choice of freedom was also important, because they say that, as we can guess actually, they say that you cannot talk about the given options or given choices, because you have to uh, clarify, you have to understand the conditions of these choices, how these options are created, how these choices are created. So freedom is not just the choice, choosing between the given choices. Freedom is also an awareness about the production, or about the historical evolution of these choices, how these options, choices evolved. They were not natural, they were not autonomous or spontaneously created, and etc. So uh, freedom is actually a will to change those choices, or create some other choices, and etc. So this is very important for the Soviet Union. So I would have to.
May I interject,
Okay,
Özgür?
sure.
We are approaching an hour, so if you would like to maybe wrap it up, or
Okay.
a few more minutes, of course. Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay. Sorry for that, but I can wrap it up. Uh, Maybe in Q&As I can expand a little bit. The Ilyakovs, actually, and Mesheryakovs, let me turn. Mesheryakov and, sorry, the Ilyankov, Mesheryakov, and Vygotsky's approach were very important for minds, the formation of mind, and etc. for AI, actually. I would like to stress that for maybe for the new AI discussions also, not just the past AI discussions. Those were not just the past events or past knowledge, actually. What they all said is actually, I can expand on a little bit later. What they all said is what Ilyankov and Vygotsky said. The substance of the mind is in general life activity. So life activity is important. So social relations, life activity. Mind builds itself in those activities. It's not connected to a single brain, or it's not connected to a single brain. What does it mean it's for the artificial intelligence? Actually, for our decades, what the new artificial intelligence, the LLMs, chatbots, and etc., all deep learning things are actually gathering the social interaction data of the world, everyday life activity of the people, and they are trying to get the pattern of them. So they are trying to make reasoning in that sense, like approaching that model in some ways, not just in all ways. So it's very important that Soviet side approach it is to clarify the Soviet side approach. So after that, I can go to social analysis of development of machine. I will just have to wrap it up quickly. What Marx said in 1850s and 1860s was very important. He meticulously analyzed machinery and three essential different parts he talked about for machine. One is motor mechanism, the other the transmitting mechanism, and the last one is actually the working mechanism or working machine. So I would like to just stress and in briefly tell that this all mechanisms, the motor mechanism is actually the power mechanism, and this is evolved into new forms of energy, motivated machines and etc., electrical, nuclear, and the other stuff. And the transmitting mechanism has actually evolved into first transmission and then communication mechanism and then networks and information mechanism. The information side of it, machine evolved into developed machines, and these are all separately developed in themselves. Now we can see networks, information technologies, and at the same time, power mechanisms, different mechanisms, and the working machine mechanism. The third one is important also. This is what Wiener would call control mechanism. That's the robotics, computers, and etc. That's the final tool or working machine. That's the essential operation mechanism. So these three mechanisms actually evolved into separate developments, specialization of each branch, and nowadays we are faced with the synthesis of their unity. Information gathered from the huge data, big data, actually data extracted by capitalist intellectual monopolies. And this information is used in artificial intelligence to get the patterns of it, so imitate the reasoning or imitate somehow thinking. So this is important, and this transmission systems and working machine all actually end up with development of feedback mechanisms. What with feedback mechanisms is very important, feedback systems, and they were primitive, actually, machine learning. When fully developed machine learning evolved, it actually needs data, that's social interaction, quantification of experience, what sociologists Zuboff said, and etc., all this surveillance, capitalism, and etc. That's actually parameterization of society. The ChatGPT with its all trillion parameters actually parameterize the society's social reproduction. So they imitate the intelligence of the hegemonic class, actually. So we end up with this nowadays modern AI, that is the autonomous systems and adaptive systems. Autonomous in the sense that they self-control, they are self-controlled, and adaptive in the sense that with feedbacks and reflection or reflexive behavior, they got information from the externalities and adapt, correct themselves so they can evolve and self-control. They can behave in a self-controlled way. So we have deep neural networks and etc. So we can see nowadays that the evolution of a machine from machine learning, and the machine learning systems evolved in actually two periods. The first period was symbolic logic period. That's the after Dartmouth conference. It was somehow like deduction in the logical sense. They were expert systems. They tried to program the behaviors of it. So they tried to program the best chess plays and chess combinations and etc. They did not learn from events, experiences, or lessons, and etc. But In 1970, things changed. The Finnish graduate student Seppo Linianna not discovered actually, but cleared out its backpropagation method, that is correction of the errors and trying to backpropagate actually the feedback. It is the feedback, the corrections to the system, artificial neural networks, so that the neural networks can learn to do some corrections and they can get more closer answers. So this was backpropagation, and backpropagation is actually some like induction, maybe we can say, but this is so. And nowadays, by deep learning, that's learning from the data, learning from the experiments, or from the training data and etc., the labeled data, all the information gathered from and labeled from the world, they can learn from the information, and they can get the pattern, and they can behave in that pattern, or try to autocorrect themselves in that pattern. So this was very important, and they used the Bayesian statistics, the new age of analysis actually, Bayesian statistics to predict, and to predict in a probabilistic sense. And by compute and data, that's very important. I'm just wrapping up in a few more minutes. By compute, that is computation power, computation processors, the speed of the processors, and etc. By getting very huge computation powers, the computes, and by the big data from the IoTs, from the environment, all the sensories, all the smart phones, and all the wearable things, and etc. By the data, they can now compute and try to compute them in their neural networks. Those neural networks are actually processors, multiprocessors, and they can have some corrections in the hidden layers. So that was how we end up in machines and machine learning. The feedback was important, and nowadays the feedback is more Bayesian, mathematical, depending on the Bayesian statistics, etc. So we end up in ChatGPT and the other stuff. So I would, as the last slide, maybe, I would try to emphasize that are we facing with Prometheus or Promethe or Frankenstein Reloaded? That's actually depends on the class struggle, because we have to reappropriate the general intellect that's expropriated from us. The general intellect is actually the general intellect of the collective worker, the software developer, the Amazon worker, all the workers, and etc. The collective worker, Gesamtarbeit, as Marx said. So the capitalists appropriate this collective labor's general intellect, absorbed and congealed in the machines. So as a symptom of world crisis and our unorganized situation, we actually might see that the productive force we are saying that the productive force of intellectual labor becomes an alienated force, and actually the destructive force expropriated by giant tech firms and bourgeois states, the armies and military industry complex, and etc. Hence the progeny, as Mary Shelley used in the introduction for his so-called monster, the progeny turns into a monster, a destructive force. Is there a way out? I think there is. So we have to claim or reclaim or reappropriate the general intellect, the collective workers and organized workers. We have some symptoms of it. Google AI workers, Black and feminist software developers, they are raising the problems of bias, inequality, class, race, and gender discrimination. Timothy Chibro, maybe we learn from them, because Meredith Whittaker trying to unionize, she tried to unionize and was expelled from there. So those are the ways. And lastly, just the last minute, I try to emphasize this paragraph from the Grundrisse. That Marx says development of fixed capital indicates to what degree general social knowledge has become a direct force of production. So AI is a last not most developed fixed capital nowadays. So it is actually it indicates to what degree general social knowledge has become a direct force of production. And hence, the conditions of the process of social life itself have come under the control of the general intellect. That is, all the scientific productions, all the scientific things that are used by capitalist production, and so hence the scientists, science workers, and etc. So this general intellect and being transformed in accordance with it, to what degree the powers of social production have been produced, not only in the form of knowledge, that's he is talking about the knowledge. Nowadays, it's information and manipulated knowledge and etc. But also as immediate organs of social practice of the real life process. Thus, big data, the data extractivism of modern capitalism, actually data colonization, maybe. So this paragraph is very, I think, very important for us to expand on, etc. So thank you for your patience. It was long, but I will maybe expand in the quick Q&A. Thank you for
Thank you
having me, and
so
thank
much.
you for your patience.
No worries. Thank you so much, Özgür. That was very impressive and detailed. So we'll try to get to that. Now, before we go further, we need to talk about the future presentations that are coming up. And first of all, on June 9th, we have Matthew Ehret, and he's going to be talking about the ideology of Cold War, origin and evolution. So that's going to be really, really interesting. And then on June 30th, Bahman Azad is going to be talking about Iran, imperialism, and the global struggle for multipolarity. I think this is going to be very interesting as, the discussions of imperialism started to revolve around this multipolarity issue, and he will go into the details of that. So without further ado, let me just say that we do need funds for running the show and, for the recording and several, keeping up the website and everything. If you can go to our website, icssmarx.org, you can, subscribe to it, and we do need your help if you can for that. Now, we are going to get into the discussion. I would like people to observe at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there is a reaction button. And if you just click on it, there is a raise hand option. So we'd go with that. Raise your hand, and I'll try to put everything in the way that they came in the sequence. And I'm going to try to be just about it. If I miss it, please do remind me. So Raj, let's go first with you, and then I have Mario, Stephen, and Lucy in queue. So let's go, Raj. Go ahead. I'm going to give around 2 minutes to people. So let's try to be.
Thank you, but I was the fourth one to raise hand. I think Mario, Steve Miller, and Lucia are ahead of me.
Excellent. So let's go with Mario then. Then we'll come to the others. Mario, go ahead, please. Mario, you need to unmute your. Oh, wait a minute. So maybe you can't. Yeah, you can. You can unmute yourself, if you can, please.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now I can.
There you go.
Thank you so much for the presentation. The upcoming topics as well looks very interesting in this context, in terms of how we get knowledge and use it for humanity. If anyone knows of like any Slack or Discord channels that or any other forums that we can follow up on, I'd really appreciate it. If you could put it in chat, thanks. And also, let's see. Wow, so many so many great topics were raised, but I will keep it under 2 minutes. The question that I have essentially, I think, involves the topic of theory and practice, in terms of models kind of aligning themselves with practice in order to meet the basic needs of humanity, gives people a barometer to measure how AI may produce information. So I appreciate the class analysis. What I found living in a parasitic country like the United States, unions in the tech industry, typically in more blue collar labor, don't really talk about like these epistemological questions, how like the questions like that relate to mental and manual labor, for example, and how yeah, it's more about, the bottom line in terms of salary is concerned, and then that's, brings up a lot of good class conscious questions, but it's certainly not in the context of how it affects the world internationally. So when I briefly studied ethnic studies, I learned in universities, professors actually wrangle with these questions much more. And if you could talk about any of those questions, and also, yeah, how universities, how professors, and GIs and students can wrangle with these questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Özgür.
Yeah, you mean in Turkey or in the world?
Yeah, well, for example, I'll just briefly explain my question. For example, the importance, what I studied here in ethnic studies from a professor, is the importance of theory and knowledge being connected to, I don't know if class struggle was the term, but actually equality, I think, is the ethnic studies term. And also how professors and faculty are treated in general. And that has an effect on knowledge, on how we, how professors are able to teach. It almost seems like a very basic question, but in terms of like how you wrangle with those questions in Turkey, yeah, I'd like to hear about that.
Oh, thank you. It's a good question and hard question, maybe. The knowledge and information, for example, in AI circles, maybe I can start from there. In AI circles, and as far as I can see, they are all talking about the biases and discrimination, etc., and they are all right because AI gathers data, and those data are too much data, and surveillance we have to talk, and they are too much aggressive. So they are trying to regulate this information and knowledge in the ethical side, or they are trying to talk about the accountability and etc. In my side, the ethics side, the ethical side, the ethical committees or the ethical side is not enough for that one, because the ethics committee or the committee that controls or that checks those AI texts and etc. Will not be that's a liberal point, actually, and liberal point does not actually ignores the class-based one. For that, the AI, the more gender, pro-gender and pro-class and pro-race AI scientists try to emphasize the inequalities, poverties, and the poverty side of it, and etc. That they are right, but how will we regulate this is important for me. In Turkey, for example, not in the university, but on the other side. I'm in the university, but I'm trying to be and trying to be in not just in solidarity, but be trying to behave and work with the unions and etc. For example, in our country, the universities, as all the universities are make official statements uh, for judiciary or for law enforcement. Those official statements is something like that. For a mine to be established or for a mine to operate, you have to have an environmental report and you have to have an environmental report for that. And this environmental report has to be come from the universities. So the university professors and etc. are all actually responsible for these reports, trying to get the knowledge that how those mines will be established and etc. But they are actually they as in all profit's sake societies, bourgeois societies, most of the scientists easily can give can accept the mine mining companies rules and etc. They can officially permit it. So this is you cannot create an open science. You cannot create a resistance in universities, especially in nowadays universities, authoritarian universities. You cannot create a different site to make a different knowledge that's from that's for people, that is for labor and etc. And if I understand correctly, just maybe my answer would be about an example. For example, again, we are working with the medical professionals, doctors, and some software developers together with the workers in the hospitals and etc. There's a very concentrated data gathering in Turkey in health sector. The national health sector gathers electronic health records very aggressively. They don't uh, they don't care about the privacy. They don't care about how those data will be used and etc. So there is a very centralized electronic health record system in Turkey. This electronic health record system is used for profit seeking for different companies, and nobody knows how they get these electronic health data and etc. So we try to build a solidarity network as a university academics, maybe trying to be more pro-labor, etc., trying to unite those laborers, but not just doctors, as well as the software developers who are working in that electronic health record system, and the other healthcare system workers, etc., so that they can reappropriate or they can claim the control of the data, which is very important for national health system, which is very important for public and etc. So this is how in our universities and in the minority, maybe I am from the minority, some pro-labor and pro-labor professors, academics try to act against this inequalities, to ethnic inequalities also, but also the class discriminated inequalities and etc.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to go to Stephen Miller, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a really thought-provoking discussion. My question is about the labor or the activity that human beings do on Facebook and Google, with Google searches or posting pictures of my cat, et cetera, et cetera. We know that this is human activity, but the question is Google or Facebook exploiting my labor power by doing this? Naturally, they seize everything that we put up there, every story, every song, every prayer that we write. But is that the exploitation of labor that produces surplus value for capitalism, which is the exploitation of labor time? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. They say the content producing, is it if you create a content, if you produce a content, is it an exploitation? For me, I don't think so. It's a expropriation of the content you actually voluntarily upload or voluntarily use in a system. But is it expropriation or is it surplus value creation? I don't think so. But if you're an influencer, if you do it for like a simple commodity production, then you're actually pretty commodity producer. So you are an influencer, you are creating content, and then by that, just like small and medium enterprise, you are getting money. Does it correspond to your labor? That's a different maybe discussion. The simple commodity production, after that simple commodity production, do you get what you worked for? That's something like a circulation problem. You get equal amount of wealth or equal amount of value that you produce and etc. But the content production, the creating content is not, because if we expand this exploitation in that sense, the so-called consumers and producers, the prosumer they were talking about, it's consuming and at the same time producing. But for me, the content producing, creation of content, internet content, social media content is by itself and all time is not a production in sense of commodity production. Facebook and the social media companies actually make those commodities. They are selling our social interaction as a commodity to advertisements and targeted advertisement companies and etc. And they have the means of production together, like face recognition, AIs, applications, and etc. They have the means of production. They have the means of production of gathered huge data. All these training data sets, they are all very costly, very big amounts of funds, etc. But we can discuss, of course. This is, if you are an influencer, if you are doing it for money and getting money from YouTube, for example, then that's actually a small, simple commodity production. So you are a simple commodity producer, but that's not a labor, not a worker thing actually to create the content.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to go to Lucy.
Yes. Hi, Özgür. Thank you. I don't know if I said your name right, but
Right.
thank you very much. It was very interesting conversation that we're having. The question I have is that when I was young, I went to high school, and my biology teacher said that all organisms have self-preservation instinct, as well as, she said, species preservation instinct. And that stuck in my mind very strongly. And because I'm not sure where this comes from, but we absolutely have it, otherwise we wouldn't exist. So here is AI, right? And does AI can have that instinct of self-preservation? Now, the reason why I think that the two instincts are opposed or appear to be opposed, but they actually work together. The self-preservation says I am more important than the rest, but the species preservation says no, the species is more important than I am. So the reason why you want to be part of the species and you want to preserve the species is because the species preserves you as well. So there, in my opinion, there is not really a serious contradiction there, unless something goes wrong. But at any rate, if this machine can acquire self-preservation, then it would be, in my opinion, a very serious problem because it would be sentient. Is that what they call it when they are aware of themselves?
Sentient.
Sentient. Yeah. And would mean that it would be able to fight back to preserve itself.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But is the machine guilty for that? Because who teaches machine to self-preserve, not to preserve the species, but to self? And what is the self actually for an AI? So here the guilt is the capitalist production's guilt for me, because it can machine learn from the environment to preserve, not just to preserve itself, or not just to preserve species, but to preserve itself. And no matter what the cost is, to kill the other species, etc. But in that condition, it will learn from the environment, that the environment of the capitalist manipulated social interactions.
Oh, yeah.
So the guilt will be the capitalism's guilt, actually. Can we assign an AI? Nowadays, they are discussing the AGI is general intellect, or a general intelligence, that is a autonomous artificial intelligence, very close to human, even more than human. That's a thing of future. Even now they are talking that it will happen in 10 years or so, but I don't think so, because what we all talked about was about the intelligence, not the mind or consciousness, because consciousness requires reflection. You have to have a reflection about yourself. You have a sense of self. I am, and not a self that is imitated by the outside world. You have an origin, in some sense, original sense. So that's where Ilyankov, the Soviet discussions about Vygotsky, was very important. And nowadays, the modern AI circles does not even see that. They don't have dialectical reasoning. They don't have dialectical method. They are not so close to that. But They're actually approaching dialectical method by way of some analytical tools and etc. They try to imitate, but they don't. I don't know, but I cannot say. But they are not aware that they are imitating dialectical dynamics and etc. So if we really reason on think about this dialectical thinking, so we have to look at the Ilyanko-Vygotsky discussion. They say the consciousness, the mind is a social process, not a process emerged from brain, not just a physical brain from a meat. The brain is a meat, so some kind of meat. So you cannot emerge a mind from a single brain. So if you are talking about the social environment, then we have to talk about the society. And the society is this society, capitalist commodity production society of commodity production. So in that commodity production, everyone, like a self-fulfilling prophecy, everyone does not wish to act, but needs to act selfishly, trying to maximize, so-called maximize. Not everyone, actually. We don't do that. Actually, our families did not do that. And what you said reminds me of Kropotkin's ethics. In Kropotkin's ethics, Kropotkin talks about just this. He says we don't have, as an evolutionary animal or evolutionary being, we don't have just self-preservation ability. We have also ability to preserve our species. We don't have just like social Darwinism. We don't have to compete with each other. We also have some solidarity between species and etc. So, but we don't need to look at the nature to see this solidarity. Actually, we are immersed into this solidarity. We are, as parenting, as nursing, we are, our parents nurse us and be with us for us, in etc. Not just parents, etc. And also, I would like to that remind me the mirror neurons in in humans and some of the primates. The mirror neurons is just on the front side of our brain, and the mirror neurons are actually the reasons that we are empathetic. We have empathy about the other being, the human being, and etc. If those mirror neurons or mirror neural system, it's a system actually, not just neurons like mirrors. They act like mirrors, so they call it mirror neurons. The mirror neurons system were not there. We didn't reproduce because we wouldn't look at the baby who is crying. We would not feel empathy for the baby who cries, and we don't try to feed it and feed him or her and etc. So we can look at the nature, but nature is not a must. We can also look at the society, different societies, egalitarian societies in past and nowadays, etc. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Özgür. Now we're going to go to Raj, and then I have Jean and Janet waiting. Go ahead, Raj.
Thank you, Özgür. That was a very good presentation. Thank you, especially since you presented from the class point of view. The way, and then also I appreciate what Lucy brought up in this, and I think Marx clearly says, what is machine? Machine is really where dead labor come to dominate living labor, okay? AI is simply an extension of that further. It's the further refinement of the machine, as I see it, and I would like you to comment on it. So the question of empathy came up, the self-consciousness, about species versus self-preservation. Excellent point that Lucy made, that we are both aware of ourselves. And in fact, the capitalist society wants to create in us self-centered human beings that are not empathetic to the suffering of others. In other words, it tries to create us as non-human beings. Okay, so for example, Gaza is a very good example of that. That is exactly what's going on there. And in a strange way, it's something similar going on in the right-wing politics of India, where Modi wants nationalism. We want our past glory. We want to be to the, this whole idea of placing a dead matter or thing of the past as something more important than the living human beings and their suffering. And so therefore, machine is nothing but a dead labor, no matter how evolved it gets. And artificial intelligence, it's, the term artificial intelligence is itself misleading, because it is not intelligence. Well, it may be that programming has gotten it very sophisticated. In other words, there are more information processing going on, right? When I learned programming as a student at an MIT type of institution in India, actually was set up by one of the MIT folks there, is this whole process going on, dehumanization of society. And what is communism? Is to fight against dehumanization, okay? And the working class struggling ultimately is to preserve this human society. And empathy, art, creativity, this is part of us being human beings, which we are being reduced. So whenever what has happened, even Marx has come to accept certain parts of capitalist logic in saying, well, what matters is production so everybody can eat, and that their freedom is not as important, their dominance by others is not as important. Well, because the first thing comes preservation, and Soviet Union had to fight a war just to preserve itself. But so there is that logic, but when you limit yourself only to that logic and give all importance to it, you are subjecting yourself to the logic of capitalism. Please make comments on whatever I have said. I would love to have a long discussion with you. I hope you will come over to Mehmet's house or my house. Actually, my house, and I'd like to bring Mehmet over here.
No, it's my house first. You are always invited, Özgür. You are always part of us, okay?
Yeah, so then we can have a day-long discussion or all night-long discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. We will need really a day-long discussion for that. That's great questions, and both Lucy and yours question. And you are definitely right that labor, the machine is a dead labor, and actually dominate the living labor, but dominate in the capitalist production. And all the terms, that labor and living labor, is actually terms of maybe capitalist labor process, because we can talk about, we will always say machinery is a dead labor, fixed capital is dead labor, that is the labor congealed and already expanded before, and you create a machine, etc. But maybe we can think the other way. The first one is, for example, when we talk about artificial intelligence, in some way, that just to be provocative, we are just like competing with, you're not intelligent, you're not intelligent enough. But our measure is not intelligence, actually. Our measure is about the mind. You don't have mind. Are you a human mind? Are you have self-awareness? Are you have empathy, or some feelings and sensations and etc.? But you can imitate that. Imitating is about intelligence, the intelligent behavior. That is getting the feedback and adapting to yourself. So intelligence has levels, and so even machines or even bacteries or some fungus and etc. Some kind of natural things that have some feedbacks or reflex, so they can give some they can reorder themselves and etc. That's a level of intelligence. About the artificial side, so if we did it and you cannot be superior than us. Do we have to be compete with that? No. But if we compete with that, we can have some diversion. The capitalism diverts our discussion, actually our actions against it. So that's true for the destructive force, for all this manipulation, for all this surveillance, for all these AIs in Turkey, drones in Yemen, in the other spot, the AI drones and AI targeting and etc. The AI's some judgments in judiciary system, or in in the borders and etc. They are all the evil exploitation of it, and nearly all exploitation of it will be evil from now on, actually, the AI side. But we can, if we think AI as a general intellect of us, of the producers, of the all the workers and etc. Is it more ideal? I don't know. We can discuss. Then we can discuss about how can we reappropriate this general intellect. We cannot do some regulations, so ethical committees. This AI is bad. We can do some good things, some liberal reforms and etc. That's not possible. I'm totally aware. But maybe we can say that we can think AI is that labor, that labor of it, like this. Maybe I don't think maybe actually that I think it's most probably that in that way. We are facing with a capitalist production, or with a surplus production that, for example, already the working day can be decreased to 4 hours or 5 hours. The other part is the surplus labor, actually. So all this poverty or unemployment is a symptom of capitalism surplus production and etc. But in general sense, the productive side, how can I say, the productivity of capitalist production in all this exploitation actually can allow the another production, the social production, to be in 5 hours, 6 hours, or 4 hours, and maybe. Why am I telling this? Because that labor actually allows that in some sense, but by reclaiming it, by not just using it in the same way, not just getting the AI and using it in a social state. That will not be so easy, even in this data gathering, data extractivist, and data colonialism. There's more to do. Maybe we can abolish and begin from the beginning, maybe start from the beginning, and etc. But AI and data, that data not extracted, is important for us to plan the production, not technically planning, but socially planning, because we can socially plan the production of needs so that the surplus time, that is free time, or that's the refreshment time, will be our social relations. We are not going to use AI for that. We are not going to use social media or matchmaking apps for that. We have time to just meet after lockdowns. You can remember, after lockdowns, people actually rushed to their societies, their social behaviors, because they were isolated. They need social activities, not just social media. So In we are trying to point out the parameterization of society in that sense. Data and datafication has some objective side. Most of it is a data extractivism and really abuse of our privacy and social interactions and surveillance and etc. But some part of it is very important for our needs and so in the pandemics, we say we can accuse or like Jacuzzi of Dreyfus case, we can accuse capitalism that you talked about AI, you talked about AI hype, and you even cannot plan or do anything with AI to produce a decent planning, not a luxury planning, not a something normal thing. Sorry.
So just what I'm going to say is I see this like species powers which have been appropriated by ruling class. That's how, whereas we want to return it. So just like any tool which you dig earth to grow food is a tool for human beings to use. These are species powers that have been developed. I mean, much of AI is developed with the help of people like yourself, people from India, China, and of course, Europe too. So it's a species powers, and that's how they sent people to moon and so forth. These are part of species powers. The question is, as you defined, who owns for what purpose this power? It's appropriating power. Somebody talking about appropriation versus exploitation. Exploitation is also appropriating power. Sorry if I have taken too long.
We have other questions in line. I think Jean, why don't you go next? Unmute yourself, please.
I think I'm unmuted now. Okay.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much. As a Marxist, I certainly agree. Thank you for your analysis, your conclusions, and I'm in agreement with all that. But I want to kind of address the question or the comment that Lucy made about this self-preservation idea. And last night I watched 2001, A Space Odyssey, a science fiction film of 40, half a century ago. But and there's a lot going on in there. But the final scene is interesting because it deals with a human being in this spaceship that's run by a supercomputer that's named HAL, H-A-L. And there's this discussion on Hal understands what's going on and that there are threats out there that he deals with. And then it comes up that, Hal is taken over. And the solution was finally the human just unplugged Hal. And you could hear the final scene there was Hal's voice getting weaker and slower, and finally it disappears. It's kind of melodramatic kind of thing. But I enjoyed the film. It's a nice film. But there's also some lessons there, and we can't unplug this clearly. But what's the solution? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. That's like I don't have solution actually. We have to have a solution. We have to have we have to collectively get solution maybe. But your question is wonderful. But for example, what if the deep learning mechanism is the deep learning algorithms, that is the modern AIs, modern chatbots, read and actually watch every text till to 2021, they say, the books, the chats and etc. Watch the videos and etc. And they try to learn and get the pattern. What if they get that? Your question is right. What if they get that this humanity give a big damage to the ecology? So in order that our planet has to survive, we have to destroy the humanity and etc. That's a question. That's right. They can get that. And the fantastic, maybe fantasy, who are the big tech company CEOs and etc. They are really crazy, and they are really about, even they think about the transhumanity and etc. Uh, they are really crazy in that sense, but that the big bourgeoisie is crazy in the sense, etc. So aggressive to implement AI, even AGI. But they say that we are gonna correct it, we are gonna fine tune the data and etc. That's true. That's the Skynet condition, like the doomsday condition. What if they are so intelligent? But there's something interesting with that. Hawkins someday said that, but that's not true. Why do you assume, for example, extraplanetary an alien being when visited us? Why do you assume them as directly enemy, immediately enemy? Why do we assume a intelligence gather some data for us and get when coming to the ethical questions of when deciding and etc. decides as not self decides with self-preserved motives and etc. Not self-preservation of species, but self-preservation. But we can assume that we can think about these script scenarios and etc. But with this, we actually does this empower us? I don't think so. For example, to talk about the surveillance characteristics of AI, the data extractivism, and etc., that's for sure, and that's true. Does this empower us? No. We can just propose liberal reforms like ethical committees, accountability, but we demand them from whom? All these states and military industry complex? No, they can't do that. They won't do that. So we can do these discussions. We can do the ethical decisions, how AI will learn in this society. The data gathered from this society, the self-centered society, will end up with a self-centered AI, selfish AI, and etc. That's for sure. That's true. The capitalist use of a capitalist produced AI would be that. But how will we empower ourselves? How will we not just resist, but build the alternative world and resist at the same time? This is some kind of trying to get the control of the production of it, and not just the software developers, but for example, when you talk about you are content producing, and you have to be aware of it. Yes, you have to be aware of it, but for content, not just content producing, but for example, when the Amazon workers go on strike and etc. But the Amazon or Walmart uses these apps, and these apps use AI systems to gather data from consumers for profile catching and etc. And also it's AI systems for navigating, to distribute, to deliver the goods and etc. But the software companies separately design these AI systems so as to get profit for the company. So the worker has to run with this navigation system, with the speed of that navigation system. So you can just try to unite the collective worker of the different fractions, and then you can in somehow talk about the control of that data and AI system actually, because you can have the Amazon workers united. It's just ideally I'm talking about. I know the unions, just as in Turkey, I can guess in US the unions, the condition of the unions, and etc. But just ideally I'm talking about the unionized Amazon workers and the unionized couriers or delivery workers and the software workers that create software, produce software for those workers, etc. When unionized and when tried to cooperate with each other and creating a counter-hegemony and creating a counter-production, actually, using their talents for the software production, for the delivery worker and for the Amazon worker, and etc. They can talk about their demands, the use of the machine, how machine learns, how they can change, how the software worker can redesign or redefine, fine-tune the software. And this is a way to implement another AI actually, and to resist the other AI. Sorry.
Yeah, we are coming to the end, so
Okay.
I'm gonna have just very quick, please, Janet, if you can be quick, and if the answer can be quick. We've just gone over our time, but go ahead, Janet. Yeah,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, thank you, Özgür, for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if AI is being applied in the genetic altering of organisms and gain of function, and if there has been work in the AI field with consciousness. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is I worked in IT a long time ago, much of it in quality assurance, systems assurance, and workflow and process mapping in a financial institution in the corporate world, and for the development of financial products. I had mixed feelings about my work in process improvement because I would find inefficiency and duplication of work that, if eliminated, would put people out of work. But due to the priorities of cost and time over quality, much of the time, they would ignore quality because they wanted the product to get to market as soon as possible. And also the quality improvements would add to the cost. But that would result in problems with the product once it was released. In any case, I'm wondering if the same priorities might apply to AI in terms of time and cost of implementation over quality.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. I didn't think too much about that, but I feel that your what you said about the job that you worked is in real danger, maybe for when AI comes for efficiency and etc. You are right. For AI, they are actually. I'm trying to talk about mostly OpenAI because I can see more about that, but I don't know each of them. For example, Gentropics and Google and the other stuff. They are, as far as I know, and as far as you can guess, they all have real operations in military sector, as far as I can guess. They all have, OpenAI also, Microsoft and Google. We learned some of it from the unionized workers in Google, Marvin, the project Marvin, etc. So there's a dark side of it, and this dark side is not so small, that's for sure. But about the efficiency and quality, you are definitely right. They are too aggressive. For example, $7 trillion Sam Altman was wishing from the world. $7 trillion fund is France plus Germany, all the GDPs of it. So he can demand from the world for AGI, he says. So they are so aggressive, so they don't have accountability actually. They don't too much accountability. We saw the Facebook's accountability, Zuckerberg's sessions and hearings and Congress and etc. There, we get that they don't have any accountability and etc. Transparency. Everything is so opaque. So I don't think they have quality management or quality efficiency problem, but they just try whatever it is. For example, about that's all I can say because I know that much of it actually. For example, there's a term ghost workers. The ghost workers are actually the workers that label all these images and data sets. They are cheap workers in Kenya, in Nairobi, in Africa, and they faced with very drastic, horrid photos and etc. of violence, and they try to label it. This is violent. This is nudity. That's a traumatic thing. So there is no control. There is no besides journalism. There is no control actually. So I don't think they have AI is applied to AI efficiency. I don't think AI cost efficiency and etc. They're more pervasive and more spoiled actually by the happenings, by all these discussions. And about the
Thank you.
just one sense
Sure.
about the genetic altering. That's for sure, and that's a great risk, and both positive results and both negative dark sides. The positive one was, for example, AlphaFold. AlphaFold was an AI deep learning algorithm that tried to do protein folding to create new protein foldings and etc. so that there is a more development in chemistry and life sciences. That was a great one. But I'm sure that they try to do for genome project and gene altering things, and I'm sure, especially China maybe, but the other side is sure. And our decade and the next decade will be maybe a depression debate, capitalist depression decade. So if those turn to destructive forces, we will see more of them, military industry projects and etc.
Thank you so much, Özgür. I had questions too, but I'm gonna pass because
Just
we have
just one line, okay?
Norma. Okay, just one line.
It's just
We
one
absolutely
line.
must go.
I need people, I posted this in the chat, people to see that what happened is field after field of wild existence has been replaced by food growing options. And in fact, it replaced the buffalo, which is as you know, the status here of the buffalo. So just to notice the relationship between the behavior and of course the mechanization of farming.
Thank you so much. And with
Thank you.
that, let's end the show. Thank you so much, Özgür. You're always welcome to come back, and I'm sure we will be in touch. And yeah, thank you for posting your email. We may get in touch with you with questions. And thank you everybody for a great presentation and the session. We'll see you next week then. So have a nice one. Thank you so much. Goodbye
Thank you
now.
all
Bye-bye.
for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Institute for the Critical Study of Society at the Niebuhr Proctor Marxist Library receives no corporate funding, nor do we have any paid staff. We rely on the support of working class folks that share our commitment to the socialist legacy of Karl Marx. We continue to need funds to meet necessary expenses. Since we can no longer pass the hat at our in-person forums, please send contributions to our treasurer, either online via PayPal or by check. The PayPal ID is ICSS Sunday, SUNDAY, @yahoo.com, and the name is Richard Fallenbaum. And checks may be made out to Richard Fallenbaum and sent to him at 1225 Nielsen Street, Berkeley, California, 94706. Fallenbaum is spelled Fallenbaum. To donate directly to the Marxist Library, send a check to the Niebuhr Proctor Marxist Library at 65 01 Telegraph Avenue, Oakland, California, 94609, or directly or donate online at www.paypal.me/npml. For information, write to npml at marxistlibr.org, and the website is marxistlibr.org.